Well, there's a couple things here as we begin and as we go into our mindfulness practice for today. One of the metaphors that we have used is the ocean, is this vast sort of expanse of the ocean. I think it's important to bring that back many times. Metaphors are good. Sometimes it's very hard to describe sort of what awareness is or what a thought is in awareness. And so we use things like clouds in the sky, where the sky is the awareness, sky is that space, and a cloud is passing through that space. And so the cloud would be like a thought. And the sky doesn't actually identify itself with the cloud. If you've ever taken an airplane, you know it could be storming underneath when you're taking off and you get through the clouds and all of a sudden it's a bright blue sky with the sun. You're like, whoa, right? Sky doesn't, it's not like the sky is identifying itself with the storm that's present over New York or Chicago. And the ocean is a similar is a similar metaphor. And I like the ocean. Maybe it's because it's fluid, or more fluid, let's say, than the sky, in terms of like, we could feel it. But also because there's the expansion of it. We can go into the water, feel buoyant in it. There's degrees of where we can actually be in the water. And so one of the reasons why I like it is because it has this capacity of going deep, of going down, of going sort of within, right? So if you think of like the depths of the ocean, right? We could go out into outer space, but that seems like, whoa, like I'm floating and I'm totally out there and there's nothing and I need oxygen, all this sort of stuff. You need oxygen at the bottom of the ocean too. You need an oxygen tank and stuff like that. But there's this sense of sort of going into the earth, into the world, and that's sort of the sense of going into yourself, in the way that I see it, and I use it as a metaphor. The metaphor essentially of the ocean is that it's water, right? And so whether you are in India in the ocean or in California in the ocean, that there's it's the same water molecule. So there's no real difference in terms of what's making up, call it like the substance or, whatever it is that's making up the ocean. Now, the ocean has had, it can be calm, but it can also be very rough with a lot of waves. And so typically, the way that the metaphor works is that the waves are like our thoughts or emotions or sensations that arise from the ocean. And that these you can have different thoughts, just like you can have different sized waves. You can have, white caps on the waves. You can have nice waves that curl. The ocean can be very stormy and rough, or it can be quite placid and peaceful. But yet it's still the ocean. It's still the top of the ocean. And a lot of times, if we experience our life, if we sort of say, hey, how was my life? Yeah, it was chaotic or peaceful, or it's always sort of changing. Well, usually what that is that, imagine that you are given a raft and you go into the middle of the ocean, and you are, right, the way that we identify with ourselves is you are in that raft, and we never actually change our perception. We never actually focus on anything else. We're in that raft and we identify with the raft. And we think that we have to stay in the raft. And as the waves come, we think that we have to, deal with those waves and be those waves and ride those waves and things like that, right? That's a lot of how we spend our life, is on the raft, on the ocean. When the ocean is peaceful, we're like, oh, this is nice. Thank God. And then all of a sudden the storm comes. We're like, oh my goodness, we're in the storm. Oh my God. Okay. Now, right. And so with the practice of mindfulness, and kind of what I've heard from some people explain it, right? Even as they practice, right? Just like what we heard even today is, oh, there was all this stuff and I was still okay, right? And so usually the way that I see that perceptually is now you put on a scuba suit, all right, and you go into the ocean. You jump off your raft and you go into the water. All right, now you're in it. Now you're one with the water. And you could stay at the top, right? But if you've ever scuba dived, the top is there's a lot of movement at the top, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm going over here. Let me try to get my breath, right? And you're getting hit by the waves or the boat is coming at you and things like that. And then they're like, oh, go down. And that sign of like go down is sort of like, oh, go within. Go in. Well, what happens when you go in? Well, if you've never gone scuba diving, right? What happens if you go down is now that the waves, you get lower and lower in the ocean, and those waves, you don't feel the movement of the waves as much. So you go down even 10 or 20 feet, and you keep on going down 30, 40, 50 feet, and you can actually be totally buoyant in this water looking up, and you see the waves, and you see the waves crashing against the boat and all the things that are happening, the seagulls coming down and eating the fish and the sun rays coming through and all this stuff. And yet you are within, watching all the turmoil that is happening above. If you are interested in scuba diving at all, I would highly recommend it because it's quite fascinating. You could do this practice. I've done the practice many times, and you put on a scuba suit. You go out if you're not certified, with somebody professional. You go down, you feel that, and you just have that metaphor. This is my mind. This is the activity of the mind. Okay, that's that top layer. That's that top layer of the ocean. And sometimes your mind is calm, and sometimes your mind is it has got lots of waves and is stormy and stuff like that. And we usually like the calm mind. We usually try to like identify with that and be like, oh, it's nice. I'm peaceful right now. The mind where it's just, constantly racing, constantly worrying, constantly thinking. That's the more of what the analogy would be of the stormy ocean, the stormy mind. And so as we use our buoyant device and we go down, 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 that's just going in. And as we go in, what happens is that we're going down, 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 down to the bottom of the ocean. And we could rest at the bottom of the ocean. And we can actually sit. You can actually sit cross-legged, bottom of the ocean, and you feel very little. There's not much movement going on at the bottom of the ocean. You might feel a little kind of almost like you feel like the tide or just like the movement of the ocean. Real slowly. And you look up and you can still see your boat up there. And you see all the waves. And you see all this movement at the top of the ocean. Waves are crashing into the boat. You're like, my goodness, look how chaotic it looks up there. That in essence that would be like the practice of going within, of witnessing. As if we go down, we witness the waves crashing but we're just watching. We know that that's part of the ocean. Right? It's not separate from like where you are at. It's part of the ocean. The waves are coming from that. Right? Just like your thoughts are coming from awareness, but you're not that. So if that analogy works for you, if that picture, if you can like sort of pictorialize what that is. You can even, do a YouTube search of, sitting at the bottom of the ocean and looking up, seeing how peaceful it is at the bottom and how much turmoil there is at the top, the difference in that. And a lot of times that analogy would be essentially a lot of times the difference between the true self, our true nature, and our identified self of thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations, which would be up in the raft or, as we're in the waves and we're getting hit left and right and et cetera, et cetera. So if that works for you, sometimes a picture or some sort of image can give a felt sense. Like, oh, I can imagine dropping down. Even if you have a pool, this could actually work with a pool. As you kind of go to the bottom of the pool, you sort of rest there. Look. Can't do it for too long unless you have a scuba. That's why what's cool about scuba is you can kind of sit there for longer. You could even send out a little bubble. You send out a little bubble into the water and you see it kind of rise up to the top. And you're like, oh, wow, look at that bubble. It's going all the way to the top. And you can see it getting bigger, getting all, at first it's like a nice little bubble and then it gets bigger and it gets all chaotic and it's being affected by the wave. And you're like, wow, look at that. Which is essentially what we do when we identify with our thoughts, our emotions, our sensations, everything. We say, oh, I had that thought. I'm good because I had that thought. I'm bad because I had that thought, or, whatever association we have with the thoughts, whatever stories we create around them. So I like that because in my practice, at least, when I do a formal meditation practice, there is this resting back of my attention. There is this sort of resting of the attention, kind of dropping down into the depths of the ocean. As I drop down into the depths of the ocean, that witnessing presence is more alive, is more active. And so I can be more aware of the manifestations, the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that arise. Be more aware of them and not identify with them. So there's a resting sort of the attention back in awareness, just like there's a dropping down of the body down to the depths of the ocean. And now we can watch what happens in this beautiful dynamic array that we call life. Oh wow, look at the waves. There's big waves, there's small waves. There's no waves. There's seagulls that are landing on the waves right now. I hope that analogy makes sense to some. I do like analogies because I think they can take complicated, or what we sort of think to be complicated concepts, and try to make them a little bit more simple, or make them something that is actually relatable, that we can relate to. Okay. So with that, we will go into our practice. Okay, so let's find a comfortable position. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze. Taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. And just giving yourself permission to do this practice right now. With each exhale, allowing any stress or tension, worries, to just be released if you can. And then breathing regularly at whatever pace works best for you. And just noticing what our experience is like in the present moment, as if we were on that raft on an ocean. How is that ocean for us? What do you notice? And just paying attention to that. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. Just noticing, here I am on my raft, floating in the ocean. How is that for you? And now just seeing if you put on your scuba suit, jump into the water, imagining the water to be warm, and allowing yourself to drop down all the way down slowly to the bottom of the ocean. However deep you may be, fully safe, held by the water, buoyant. Going down and resting at whatever depth you wish that you feel comfortable at. And finding your place in the water where you feel comfortable. And just seeing, can you look up and see the waves above where your raft is being held? Can you witness the top of the ocean, the waves, but yet be present at the bottom of the ocean? a good analogy for our true self. Going down, looking within, that introspection, resting our attention, just like we rest our bodies in the water, allowing us to sink and rest in our true essence. Simply witnessing the waves above, just like we witness our thoughts or emotions or sensations as they come and go. Can you rest your attention back to its source? And simply notice what happens. Can we notice our thoughts and emotions and sensations, just like we notice the waves at the top of the ocean? Resting peacefully within in our true nature, from pure awareness, simply witnessing. And just noticing what your present moment experience is right now. There's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong. Just notice. And as we bring this practice to a close today, seeing how we may use this metaphor throughout our day, our life, to help bring us within, to help bring us deeper to our true nature. And with that, taking 2 or 3 deep breaths, feeling your feet on the floor, your hands in your lap, opening your eyes if your eyes were closed, stretching or moving if you feel like you need to stretch, and just taking a moment to reflect on your practice.